The Bell AH-1 Cobra was one of the helicopters that helped define the popular image of the American war in Vietnam. ICM has released a 1/35th scale kit of the aircraft, and I have got one to make. Find out how I got on right here on Gary's Stuff. Hello there, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Today is Build Day on Kit of the Week, that kit being the AH-1G Cobra in 1/35th scale from ICM. Now, if you're thinking about getting one of these, want to know what's in the box, there's already a box opening video available on my channel. If you've got one or you've got one on order and you want to know how to put it together, this is very much the video for you. If you like any of my content, please do remember, give it the imperial thumbs up on the like button below because every like counts. And if you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and you'll be notified of all my content in the future as it is published. If you want to give a bit more concrete support, you can do that through Super Thanks by becoming a channel member or indeed by using any of my online affiliate programs. Now, before we continue, I do want to point out this kit was given to me free as a review sample by ICM. However, they're not paying me to say anything specifically, so all the opinions you hear on this video are my own and they are honestly held. Enough of all of that, let's crack on and build this AH-1G Cobra in 1/35th scale from ICM. We're going to make a start by building the seats. It's fun doing this actually because I'm used to like 1/48th scale, and these are so much bigger and so much nicer to use. It's an absolute delight to be doing 1/35th for a change. So the side panels of the seats go in here. So when you're building these, don't worry, just align this tab along the base of the seat here. There is supposed to be a little gap here, so don't try and match this gap up here. Just align it up with here and then against the side of the seat there, and you're okay. Then the cushion for the base goes in here. It kind of sits around that thing there at the base of the chair. Then the rear cushion goes in here. And it just sort of sits against those two uprights at the bottom there. Just make sure it's nice and central. Now, while I've got the ejection seats drying up, I've sprayed the cabin, the cockpit tub, if you will. And I'm just going to dry brush on these edges and these instrument sets, because they look pretty boring if they're just black. There we go. Now some of these I'll also go over in other colours because I can't believe there's just white everywhere on these things. It just gives an impression of something that's actually been lived in and flown rather than something straight from the factory. And also these black cockpit interiors, you know, they're going to be dark in there, so just give them a bit of contrast because otherwise you're not going to see any of the moulding that the company have taken so long to put in. It's taken that effort. So just keep touching up and fiddling around, and then now and again we're going to go in and put in some other colours as well, maybe a few bits of yellow, a few bits of red, but tiny little droplets of it to just to highlight things. So as I say, just here and there, just put in a few sort of red. Now the red, because you put white down first, the red will show up nicely. And yeah, it'd be good. It's just good to get a bit of variation in the colours here. 3. So that's what it, it's just literally just a few bits of colour here and there, just to brighten up the look of the cockpit. The rudder pedals go in to the floor like so. Okay, so we fitted the rudder pedals front and back. I just put a little bit of silver on them to show that they've been worn by the crew bashing their feet on them. I don't know if this is a collective, and the joystick for the pilot at the back here, and then some other bits and pieces and controllers, joysticks, whatever for the weapon system, I'm guessing, at the front here. It's all been painted black, but I've just given a tiny bit of dry brushing of white over everything, just because I want it to look a bit used, but also I want it to stand out still. Otherwise, it's just going to be a massive sea of black, and that's not going to look great. Okay, so we'll put the seats in, and that, for the moment, should be the cabin done. And we put the seats in. Remember, this one with the more sort of sculpted sides is for the front, for the gunner. And then the one at the back for the pilot. Like so. Let's make sure they'll sit down into place properly. And there we go. Done. There is a decal provided for this instrument panel, but because there's quite a lot of sort of detail down here, I don't think it's going to set terribly well, even with quite a lot of setting solutions. So what I'm going to do is dry brush it, and I'm just got like a really feathery brush, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. It's just sort of dab it on something else, like a bit of wood, bit of sprue, maybe a frame, whatever you call it, bit of plastic that part comes on. Does it until it's only just leaving some paint, and then very gently at first start brushing over the instruments, and you'll see all of the bezels pick up detail straight away. Now, some kits have instrument data, as it were, like little pointers or whatever, molded in as well. This one doesn't, because it's intended that you actually put the decal on top. But as I say, I don't think it works. Just keep brushing over this very gently. Just keep adding very gently. You can always take stuff off. Always add a little bit to the edge as well, so that you can see the edge. And then, when you're happy with it, leave it alone, and we'll come back and paint on some instrument markings. Now, what you can do is use this as a kind of like a pattern to show you where bits of red are going to go, if there are any dials, what the dials look like the artificial horizons, so on and so forth. If there are any sort of things on there, what basically an aircraft at rest will have, because that's what it is here. Engines are shut down, and whatever, there's no airspeed and whatever else. So use these as a pattern to paint onto here what looks to you what looks okay, right? You're probably not going to be able to exactly copy that, but you're going to get something close to it. Okay, let's see what we can do. Okay, well, it's sort of getting there. When you're sitting here looking at it through like a close-up on a camera, it's going to look a lot rougher than it looks from like 30 centimeters away. From there, it looks actually really pretty darned good, I have to say, even though I say so myself. You can spend a lot of time doing this. You really can spend a lot of time doing this if you want. And you can get these lines absolutely spot on. Now, there's some stuff up here, master warnings and whatever, that come up in red. So I'll touch them with white first, because the red will then show up nicely in a bit when we put it on. Okay, so we then just go over those few bits of white with some red. There we go. Now, I'm pretty sure some of these other switches will be red or whatever, so I'm going to paint it. I think that one's going to be red. Just do. Don't know why. And I might drop in a little bit of yellow just for fun. You know, if you're doing this for competition, don't do what I do and just sort of slap bits of colour in wherever you think, oh, that looks pretty, or do it there. Do actually make sure that what you're doing is correct. But if you're just doing it for yourself and you want a bit of colour, then by all means just put a little, just don't overdo it. There's not that much colour in cockpits because, especially with red, you want red to be there when you need it. When it's an emergency, you want to see the red thing shining. That's it. Deal with it. Okay, leave these to dry now, and then we'll just add a finishing touch in a little bit. Now, the last thing we're going to do is make it look like these are glass instruments. So what we're going to use is a bit of, so I'm using this Crystal Magic glue. It's the sort of glue that you use to bond transparent parts together. In fact, I will be using it later on this helicopter I'm making. However, what it is, it's like a clear acrylic, and what you can do is just dab onto these instruments, and it forms like a clear, shiny spot, makes it look like glass. And just keep going around there. Maybe I don't know, you can just see it's got a bit of a shine to it already. Those bits, because this is a properly matte paint that I'm using for the instrument panel. You can see it just catches the light a bit. And that's what we want to do, is to just go around the instruments that have got glass fronts with little dobs of that, and they'll be fine. And so there it is. As I say, this is in 1/35th scale, so this is zoomed in. Well, on my preview screen on the side of my camcorder, this is twice life size. So goodness knows what size it appears on your screen. But you can see the light gets caught by the little dobs of clear on there. I've also put some over these red things. If these are red warning lights, annunciators or whatever, they're going to be shiny plastic with some red that shines through. So I've done those as well. I've also done the front cockpit as well for the gunner on this AH-1G. So, altogether, I think they look pretty cool. And when they go, we compare them to the actual ones supplied, they're not that bad, I think actually personally, I think they're better, but that's just me. The pilot's console goes in like so, and the gunner's console goes in the front like so. Just glue them into place. Paint the tops black. This blob here, this thing here, that stays as sky grey, but paint the top black. And that essentially is the whole of the tub done. Right, this is the back wall of the cockpit area. First thing I've done is put this medical bag on. I got it from kit from another, the kit options on some soldiers. So it's just like a waste bag type thing. Painted it green, put a red cross on a white circle. That seems to be okay. The quilting here, I've sprayed the whole thing, given it a wash, and then just painted in some little highlights at the top. And that's that, really. Right, I'm going to move on to the transmission assembly now, which is going to be on the inside of the cabin, but we're going to have it exposed. So these two discs are like I guess a filter box or something like that. The filter things come as quarters, and if you look really carefully, you'll see that there are little sort of pins and slots. They alternate. So make sure when you do this, you get them alternating properly. So they go on the outer rim, like so, and then just work your way around. Then when that's complete, you can put on the other end cap, like so. This filter kind of assembly sits then onto this wall. Then we can start assembling other bits of the transmission. What I'm going to do is assemble bits that are going to be the same color, then paint them all up, then do the final assembly. So this is all going to be aluminium. This can just be glued together now. And the rest of this part of the gearbox can just go together. There are lugs and slots for these to make sure they're aligned properly. What I've done here, just to add a little bit more, something, just a bit more detail in a way, is this filter here, oil filter or something. There's feed pipes and exit pipes around. I just added this in. It's a piece of solder, soldering wire, just to drilled a few holes and fed it through. Attach it with a bit of super glue, and leave it at that. And then that can get painted up with everything else. We can start the assembly job on this transmission now. I've used a photographic reference I found online, or someone had done a walkthrough, whatever they call it, of an AH-1G. I keep saying AH-64 because I think I'm building one, and I'm not. An AH-1G, and I've sort of checked out a few things and checked out some colours of the various places, bits and pieces and whatever. And this is as close as I can get, I think. It's fairly close to what the instructions say. What I have added, as I mentioned before, was these pipes, and I've painted the filter sort of a cream colour because the filter on the AH1 I saw was cream coloured. These union joints were blue. There's these little red blocks around the base to support this, so that's essentially why I painted it the way I have, because that's what it looked like on a walk around that someone had a look at. I've used a kind of I'm trying to get an interior green. It's not the same green as the outside of the aircraft. It's slightly greener, if you see what I mean. It's not as brownish. And what I've used is NATO green, XF67 Tamiya, and that sort of gives it a reasonably. I think it should be maybe a bit brighter than that, but not as bright as your usual interior green, which just doesn't look right to me. Anyway, so that bit's there. Let's look at putting the rest of it all together as well. So I've just painted the edge of this filter in sort of burnt iron. Just put just a tad of glue into these slots here. And then there are three other pieces that sort of form the other three sides of like a box that this goes around. So there are these three dampers, shock absorbers, dampers, don't know what they are. Going here, one sort of crowds up against that little pipe I put in. The other three going here. other two, sorry, go in here. Then there's a cap that goes on top, go into the ends of it. That's so. And finally, this piece goes on here. He doesn't want to. That around, it slots on straight away. Funny that. There we go. That way around then. Bit of glue to hold it in place. And that is all done. We'll just let that dry. Touch up the paint. Give these top bits some aluminium, maybe some Dural to make it a bit of difference. Finish off the black on the posts here. And when it's all done, maybe give it a little bit of a oil wash, engine oil wash or something, just to make it look like it's a bit used. 3. If you've gone for versions 3 or 4, you'll need to drill out these two holes, and there's the same on the other side of the fuselage. There's this piece here you put in for all the versions, and there's a little plug here. These are like filter inlets. You can see this like filter thing here. Then we need to put the tail units on. What they do, there's two versions of the tail unit, and these just sort of go in here. I'm kind of not happy about this, the way this is done, but yeah, if it works, it works. So you do it on each side, and then they come together in them later on when you join the fuselages together. But put those in for the moment. The gearbox assembly goes into the side of the fuselage here. There's a tab alongside this wall here, lines up, and the whole thing can be glued together. The rear wall here, the one that contains a filter, slots into the side there. All goes together very well. So you've got the rear wall of the cockpit, and then the cockpit tub slots in underneath it there, and then onto its own guides as well. All looking actually quite good. I have to say the fit looks actually really, really good. The engine exhaust nozzle slides in here to the rear of the engine compartment here, and it sits. You can just move it around until it sits exactly where it has to be. So, and now finally the two halves of the fuselage can go together. I have to say that actually does look rather nice already. I'm really happy with that. Okay, so we'll just go around, set some tape up, set some clamps where we need to, set some tape, then tidy all this up with some extra thin cement. We can also then put in these bits of armour plates. I guess that's what they are. Very much won't have them if they're not armoured plated, yeah. Then this pipe goes in. This is the air conditioning line, and what they did on the Cobra, which I think is an amazing idea, is that the air conditioning pumped out directly into the seat back. So when you're flying, your back is kept cool by the air conditioning. It sort of vents out around your back, which is brilliant. Anyway, so there's a pipe there, and there's a pipe here as well. The nose fairing comes in two halves. which go together thus. Then there's a nose cap, and that sits on the top there with the hole for the pitot on the top. Okay, and then glue all that together. Just one little tip, if I may. A lot of the way through building a kit, you'll get things that you want to leave off. Like here, I don't want to put this part E2 on. It's just a light that sits on top of here. It's a red ID light or navigation light. I'm going to spray this whole kit, so I don't need a transparent part just stuck on top. A tiny little thing I can add later, but I will forget it. So make sure anything you leave for later, highlight it in some way. I don't know how you're going to do it necessarily, but do it, because otherwise you will forget it. I mean, here, I'm not going to put in the tail skid until I've painted the whole thing. There we go. So it's things like that. Just a little tip. It saves forgetting bits and then going back there, oh my god, I forgot it, when you're trying to film it or show it to your mates or whatever. Another thing that can go on the side is this. I don't know if it's kind of like supplemental armor or something, but anyway, there's two plates here that stick on the sides. They're optional, but I don't actually. I guess they're armor. I'm going to guess they're armor, but they're only on one side, which is kind of bizarre. So anyway, there we go. That kind of all lines up there. The nose cone can go on as well. Fits in, flips in on both sides. There we go. Then the base keel, if you like, of the helicopter can go on, and this is an astonishingly nice fit, I have to say. There's also this piece just behind where the chin turret goes. Just need to line it up on this side. It fits inside the line of that armor plate over there, like so. Then there's this other kind of fairing that sits against that and runs into the underside of the fuselage, like so. So now we start putting together the stub wings, weapon pylons wings. So they come in two halves like this, and we'll just glue those together. And the end cap comes in two parts as well, and they just slot onto the end of the pylon like so. Get that in place and then glue it in place. Now the weapons pylons here, they have the actual pylon. This is the stub wing. They have weapons pylons in. Each weapons pylon has the weapons clasps in. Put them all together, and then the stub wings can go into the side like so. 1, 2, 3. On each side there's an ammunition pannier I'm putting on. There's a top cover that goes on like so. Then there's the connection to the stabilizing connection, I guess, that actually goes to the stub wing. This. Let that dry for a second, and then we'll set it on the aircraft. Then these panniers go on the side of the fuselage. They connect up to the base of the stub wing there, and then just sit on the side of the fuselage. And of course, we've got to make sure they clear the mounting holes here for the landing skid. Just one point here, in panel 55, when you're putting the weapons clamp into the pylon that fits under the port stub, It says D34. That's not part D34. That's part D38. So if you see D34, you look at D30, it looks nothing like that. That should be 38. It is on the other side, so it's the same number. D38. And we can put the landing skids in as well at this point. They just hook in behind there like this. I'm just going to chase around the panel lines now, running about 20 psi, and this is the 0.38 needle in here. Three. So this is what we end up with. It's very straightforward. That you just follow all the lines. Doesn't matter if you don't do them exactly because you're going to be spraying over them. But they're going to just give a bit of depth to all the panel lines. And of course you can do panel line washes later as well. Now I'm going to let that set, and then I'm going to put some white highlighting in, because whenever we have shadows, we have to have highlights. Then we can start adding some highlights in white and give them some patterning in the larger areas. That's called marbling. So there it is finished. You can see the panel lines outlined in black. This sort of splotchy, marbly sort of coating of white in the middle of the panels. Just going to let that cure off nicely now, and then get ready to paint the whole thing in US dark green. Then with the highlighting dry, I can start on the top coats. Right, we're going to build the main rotors now. These just come in two halves, and I was worried about them coming in halves and thinking, oh God, I'm going to do a load of edge filling. But do you know what? There's not going to be any filling required because these fit so well. There's just no seam there. Once that gets glued, there will be no seam there either side. The back I might have to just work along with some quickset extra thin, but other than that, there is absolutely no need to see any seams here, which I think is quite incredible. While the rotors are setting, there's the top part of the rotor spine assembly here to go on. You can only assume they're different in different versions of the helicopter. You wouldn't do it otherwise. That's just one piece, but anyway, let's see what we can do. There's also a piece here which is essentially the very top of the rotor hub, goes onto the top half of the blade assembly here. Then you can join the two halves of the hub together. It says in the instructions that you should, clamp these around the rotor blades first, but you can actually slide the rotor blades in later and connect them up with the drag hinge here. While the plane is drying, all the paint's curing, I should get on to building the chin turret. This piece sits in here, and then the relevant gun barrels go into each of these. Kind of think that you can get an idea where the BBC got the idea for Daleks from with this arrangement. Can start assembling some of the armament as well. In this case, the rotary 20mm cannon. These stabilizers for the tail come in two halves each and just snap together. When they go on, the riveted side is going to be the top. Now we're going to complete the main rotor shaft here. There's a piece here that goes on, and then there are two hinges that go on there and there. I've done one, I'll do the other one now. Like so. The actuators for the pitch go on here. Like so, and then we put these in place. There we go, like so. And then leave that somewhere to dry really, really well. One of the last major pieces of construction is to put the rotor blades onto the hub. There's a tab, the hinge there that they have to go on, like so, and just glue them in place. Now it's time to start putting on all the little bits and pieces that you marked off in your instructions for do later. Now's the time to do them all. In the gun turret at the front, I've just pasted some lead shot just to give it a bit of weight, because I've noticed that the helicopter just sort of seems to lean back a bit at the moment. So just put a little bit of weight there just to give it a little bit of help sitting forward properly. If you're going to have the door covering the transmission open, then you need to put this bracket on. There's two L pieces and a bar between them, just glue together, and then there's a little piece in here. I don't know what it does. I suppose it's some sort of baffle or something like that. Anyway, it goes in there. Wait for them to dry, paint them up, of course, and put them on in a bit. The horizontal stabilizers can fit in as well. Okay, last few things now. Put the door in place with the hinges inside here. I've taken the paint masks off the canopy. It looks fantastic. I've given it an all-over quick coat of XF matte just to matte down the decals. All we've got left to do is put some weapons on, put the rotors on, and it's done. Oh, some lights as well. Tail rotor goes in place, like so, and the main rotor just drops into the slot like so, and we're done. So there we have the AH-1G in 1/35th scale from ICM. I really enjoyed making this. I got it thinking that, you know, I need to do a proper big helicopter. The 148th Airfix Lynx had kind of put me off helicopters a bit, but I thought, no, get back on that horse, as it were, and try another helicopter. This one came along, thought, give it a go, and I enjoyed it. I really did. The fit is just excellent, and frankly, excellent. The fuselage goes together so quickly. The canopy just sort of slots together almost. It's just effortless. The weapons choice is good. The scheme options are good. The only difficulties I really had with this kit were the decals. Those shark's mouth decals at the front, because they're very thin and because there are a couple of sort of probes that sit out that aren't accounted for. It was a nightmare putting the decals on at the front end. They are so very, very thin and delicate, and they really took a lot of work. I had to repaint quite a few bits of red and white to get the finished result. The rest go down very easily, and because they're thin, they sit very well. A bit of setting solution, a bit of microset and microsol or whatever you use, and they're fine, absolutely fine. Colors, really enjoyed using the ICM paints. I enjoyed using the ones supplied with the kit in my case. Do you know, I can't really think of anything bad to say about it other than the decals. The whole thing was a joy to build. Would I build another one? If I had loads of time, I probably would. I'll probably wait for one of the later ICM boxings at this scale. And yeah, I probably would, because I did enjoy it. If you're looking for a Cobra, 1/35th, particularly if you want to do sort of Vietnam era dioramas with it, this is absolutely a kit you should get. There we have it. It's a really good kit. Now, I'm not a big fan of making kits of helicopters, as you'll have seen when I made the FX Lynx, for example. But you know, kits like this are beginning to turn me around to the idea. I've got another helicopter in the stash I really have to make soon, so this has really buoyed up my confidence with that. I loved the size of it. I loved the molding, the quality of the plastic, the way it went together, which was really, frankly, nothing short of stunning. And I loved it. It was a long old job, but worth every minute of it. I really, really think this is a great kit. If you like your helicopters, especially if you like 1/35th, because you can tie it in with vehicles and figures of the time, this is definitely a kit to get. It's really very, very good. Now, if you've enjoyed the show, I hope you have, please remember, Imperial thumbs up on the like button below because every like counts. And of course, if you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and you'll be notified of all my future videos as they are released. Thank you so very much for watching. Take good care now. Goodbye.